Chapter 1. Another Day at the Office. The bar sat 90 floors up, and the whole city burned below it. New York at night. Red and gold light ran along the water. Boats crossed the dark harbor in slow lines. Far out past the bridges, a rocket climbed into the sky on a thin thread of fire, up and up until it was just another star. Nobody in the lounge looked at it. They had seen 1,000 of them. Cade Mercer sat at the bar and watched the room in the mirror. A glass of Black Orbit 18 stood in front of him. He had ordered it because ordering nothing in a room like this made a man interesting, and Cade did not plan to be interesting tonight. He had ordered it by name because a man who knew what he wanted was a man other men stopped watching. He had not touched it. He was lean, not big. The kind of man people walked past twice before they realized they'd walked past him once. Dark suit, cut close, dark skin against a white cuff at the wrist. Nothing about him flashy, but nothing about him cheap either. A small white scar sat near his jaw, old enough that he had stopped remembering how he got it. His face was calm and a little worn, like he had been awake for most of his life. Late 30s, old enough to know better. Young enough to still run. In the mirror, he read the room the way other men read a newspaper. 2 businessmen by the window, drunk and loud and harmless. A woman alone at a corner table, watching the door. But watching it the way a bored person watches a door, not the way a hunter does. A waiter who moved a half step too slow, tired, near the end of a long shift. A young couple too in love to notice a fire. No threats, not yet. A waiter cleared a table and dropped the dishes down a brass tube in the wall. The tube swallowed them with a soft thump and shot them off to a kitchen somewhere far below. Cade had watched it happen 6 times now. He noticed things like that. Not because they mattered, because noticing was a habit he could not switch off, and habits like that were the reason he was still breathing. Cade checked the clock behind the bar. His man was 9 minutes late. The bartender came back around and tipped his head at the untouched glass. "Not to your taste, sir?" "Waiting on a friend," Cade said. "He'll drink it faster than I would." "Long wait?" 9 minutes so far. Might be another one. Might be all night. The bartender smiled the small, professional smile of a man who had heard worse reasons to sit at his bar. "I'll leave you to it then." "Appreciate you." He let the whiskey sit and waited. Waiting was most of the job. People thought the work was the chasing and the fighting. It wasn't. The work was sitting still in a nice suit, hour after hour, watching a door until something finally moved. Then the door opened, and something moved. The man came in fast and wrong. Too fast for a place like this. He stopped just inside the door, looked around the room, and wiped his face with the back of his hand. Sweating. In a cool room. Cade did not turn around. He watched in the mirror. The man was thin and gray, 50 maybe. Soft hands stained with ink. A cheap coat thrown over an expensive shirt. He found Cade at the bar, swallowed hard, and crossed the room like the floor might open up under him. He sat down on the next stool. He smelled like fear and old cigarettes. "You Mercer?" he said. "Sit down before you fall down," Cade said. "And smile like I just bought you a drink. There are 11 people in this room, and right now 9 of them are wondering who you are." The man put both hands flat on the wood and tried to hold still. It didn't take. "Somebody followed me," he said. "From the lab. I lost him. I think I lost him. I don't know." "Drink something," Cade said. "You look like a man about to confess to a killing." The man did not drink. He leaned in close. "I have it," he whispered. "Everything I promised. It's all on here." "Then hand it over and finish your drink like a normal man." His hand moved under the bar. Cade felt something small and cold press into his palm. A data capsule, the size of a thumb. Years of somebody's stolen work, sealed up in a little can of metal. Cade slid it into his jacket without looking at it. He did not need to look at it. It was either the right one or it wasn't, and looking at it in a room full of witnesses would not change which. "Good," he said. Now you walk out. Slow. Take the south elevator. There's a car on the street, gray, waiting for you. You don't run. Running makes people... You don't understand, the man said. His voice shook. What's on there? If they find out I gave it to you. They won't, Cade said. Not if you walk slow. Keep your mouth shut, and remember which of us gets paid to worry. Can you do that? The man nodded. He did not look like he could do that. The man went white. He was looking past Cade into the mirror at the door. He's here, he said. Who? But the man was already off the stool. He ran, straight across the lounge. He hit a waiter's tray and sent glasses smashing across the floor. Heads turned. The young couple finally noticed the world existed. Cade did not stand right away. Standing up was what everybody in the room was doing, and everybody in the room was wrong. He counted 3 beats, watched the door, read the man who had just come through it. Then he stood up. A man had just come through it. Big, calm, a gray coat and a flat, empty face. He did not look at the broken glass or the shouting. He looked at the running man, and he was already moving after him. Cade knew that walk. Slow. Sure. A man who knew his target had nowhere to go. A professional, which was inconvenient because so was Cade. Cade moved. The gray man cut through the crowd like water. Cade went wide around the tables trying to close the gap, but the lounge was packed and slow and full of people who didn't understand they were in the way. The sweating man hit the doors at the far end and shoved through them onto the open terrace. Night air, harbor wind, a low glass rail, and a long drop to the lights below. Bad move. A terrace had one way in and one way out, and he had just trapped himself. By the time Cade reached the terrace doors, it was over. The gray man had him against the rail. There was no fight, just one short, ugly movement, an arm going in low and pulling back, and the sweating man folded around his own stomach. Then the killer lifted him, almost gently like helping a drunk friend, and tipped him over the rail. He didn't scream. He was already gone before the air took him. Cade reached the rail 2 seconds too late. He looked down once. The lights of the harbor swallowed the rest. The killer was already running. Cade did not look down again. Looking down did nothing for the dead man, and the dead man was past help now. He looked at the killer instead. Gray coat crossing the terrace toward a gray service door. A thin blade still in one hand. He moved smooth and quick. A man who had done this many times. He did not look back. That was his mistake. A man who never looks back doesn't know who is behind him. Cade went after him. His mind worked while his legs did. Cold. Quick. Like a machine that never quite shut off. 6'2". Right-handed. By the blade. Moved like a soldier. Maybe better than a soldier. Came alone. He had known which hotel, which floor, which lounge. Somebody had told him. Somebody had sold the sweating man for the price of a phone call. That was a problem for later. Right now there was only the door, swinging shut, and the man going through it. Cade hit the door with his shoulder and followed. The terrace had been all glass and wind and city light. Behind the service door, the future ended. Gray walls. Bare bulbs in cages. Pipes ran along the low ceiling, hot and sweating. Somewhere close, big machines hummed, the ones that kept the beautiful hotel beautiful. A metal stairwell dropped down into the dark, the steps ringing under their feet. This was the part nobody put on a postcard. Every shining tower had a gut like this. Pipes and heat and tired men in coveralls, hidden under the champagne and the marble. The guests upstairs never thought about it once. Cade took the stairs 3 at a time, one hand on the rail, ribs already starting to complain. He could hear the killer below him. Fast footsteps, a heavy door banging open. Cade followed the sound down. 2 floors, 3, into a long, low hall full of machines and steam. He knew buildings like this. They all ended the same way. A loading dock, a way out to the street. The killer was running for the street. So Cade didn't chase the footsteps. He cut left, down a shorter hall to get ahead of him. A worker in coveralls flattened against the wall as Cade went past, eyes huge. "Evening," Cade said, and kept moving. The hall turned. Cade turned with it, and walked straight into the blade. The killer hadn't run for the street at all. He had stopped, waited around the corner. Smart. The blade came up fast for Cade's stomach, and only old habit saved him. Cade twisted hard. The point caught his jacket, missed the flesh. Then they were both moving, and there was no plan and no skill, just two men in a hot metal hall trying to end each other. The killer was strong. He drove Cade backward into a bank of pipes. Steam shrieked out where they hit. Cade felt the heat bite through his jacket and snapped his elbow up into the man's face. Bone crunched. The nose went flat. The killer didn't even slow down. He hit Cade in the ribs. Once, twice, like a man swinging a hammer. The air left Cade's body. His knees tried to fold. He would not let them. Somewhere in the back of his brain, the part that never quite panicked, Cade filed a note. If he lived through this, he was going to have a very long conversation with whoever had underestimated this man in the briefing. The blade came again. This time Cade caught the wrist, both hands, and they stood locked together, shaking, the point an inch from his throat. The man was stronger. Cade was not going to win this by being stronger, so he stopped trying to be. Big men fell the same as small men, Cade thought. They just took the floor with more of them. He let his knees go. He dropped his whole weight straight down and dragged the man with him, and as they fell, he wrenched the wrist the wrong way. Something snapped like a green branch. The blade rang on the concrete. The killer made his first sound. A short, animal grunt. They hit the floor together, Cade on top by an inch, and he did the only thing left that mattered. He grabbed the back of the man's head and drove his face into the concrete. Once. Teeth bounced across the floor like spilled dice. Twice. The man went still. Cade grabbed the man's head from behind and twisted hard. Something cracked. The man stopped moving. Cade stayed there a moment, on his hands and knees, sucking air through the fire in his ribs. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had almost died in a basement, which is what he was. He was still on his knees when the side door at the end of the hall opened. A second man came through it fast. Same coat, same walk. Pistol up. Cade had 1 second, one hand, and one weapon. The killer's dropped blade on the concrete beside his knee. He threw it. He was not the kind of man who threw knives. Nobody good was. Knives were not built for throwing, and the men who trained on throwing them were showing off in front of mirrors. But he was on his knees, out of options, and sometimes the wrong move at the right distance was the whole answer. 12 feet. The blade turned once in the air. The second man's pistol came up. The blade hit him in the throat. He did not fire. His knees went. He sat down hard against the wall with both hands at his neck, eyes wide, mouth working around nothing. Then the eyes stopped seeing. Cade got to his feet. Slow. He walked over to the second man, pulled the blade out, wiped it clean on the man's coat, picked up the pistol, checked the magazine, full but one, put it in his own jacket. Then he went back to the first body and finished searching it because dead men were still evidence, and evidence was still the job. He searched the body. Its face was a wreck. In the gray coat, Cade found a second blade, a roll of cash, and a small data capsule, the twin of the one the sweating man had pressed into his hand. So that was the job. The killer hadn't come to stop the research. He had come to grab a copy and erase the one man who could talk about it. Quiet. Clean. Almost. Cade put both capsules in his jacket and got to his feet. The worker in coveralls still stood frozen at the end of the hall. "Hotel security," Cade lied. "Call the police. Tell them a man went off the terrace." He glanced down. "And tell them there's 2 down here who won't be needing a room. Don't touch either of them." He glanced down at the bodies. "Checkout's at 11. Then he straightened his jacket cuffs, took a comb from his pocket, ran it once along the side of his fade, and walked out. Even stride. A man leaving a bar. Then he walked out, straightening his jacket sleeves. He found a quiet stairwell 2 floors up and chilled there. He touched the communicator on his wrist. "Mercer," he said. The voice answered at once. A woman. Calm. Used to calls like this in the middle of the night. "Go ahead." "Package secure. Both copies. The source is dead. Killed in front of me before I could move him." A short pause. "Are you hurt?" "I'll live." "That's not what I asked." "I'll live," Cade said again. He rolled his shoulders once. His ribs answered him back. Not tonight, though. Ribs were a problem for the morning, not tonight. "Bring it in," the voice said. "Cleanup's already moving on the hotel. Good work." It wasn't clean. It never is. Cade started to sign off. Then the voice came back and the easy tone was gone. "Hold. There's a flag coming through for you." "I'm not exactly available right now." "It's from Washington." "They know what time it is in New York?" "They don't care what time it is in New York." Cade shut his eyes. When a flag came down from Washington in the middle of the night, it meant the rest of his night was no longer his. "We've got a missing scientist," the voice said. "They want you moving." Cade looked up at the night sky. Somewhere behind the light haze, another rocket was climbing toward the ring. He was going to miss New York. He always did. "Where?" "Berlin Express." Silence. "Get moving."